Hello and welcome back to another episode of Critical Reactions with your host Bryan. We're going to continue on with this week's non-theme where I just allow my patrons to pick whatever they want me to check out. I think that's a nice way to just wrap up the year and no overarching theme necessary this week. We're going to listen to an artist called Kaki King, which I've never heard of this artist before. The track title amuses me a little. Can anyone who has heard this title really be a bad person? Heard this music really be a bad person? Let's dive in. Let's see what Kaki King is doing here. Nice 3 to start. Atmospheric with, it sounds like strings, violin with a lot of reverb. Yeah, beautiful guitar melodies. More minimalistic. Well, the drums are expanding. I was going to say that they're a bit on the more minimal side, functional. The background sounds sort of moving. It's a very warm overall sound though. Great contrast too. There's good control of the energy, the intensity. The harmonics here are a really nice choice too. Increased in pitch, a little sharper attack, but not really taking up more space. And that allows for these full chords to fill that space that was alluded to with the harmonics. Thinking it's over. That's a beautiful track right there. Yeah. Yeah, dude. All right. So, general control on this track. Like I mentioned, I really like how everything is purposefully placed, whether it is a rising of energy or volume or layering or intensity, or removing all of that too. It's the pacing of the track. All of it just makes a lot of sense to me. And it's also particularly done too. I mean, most bands have rising and falling action, but there's something about this that feels more purposeful. It isn't just about creating contrast, it's about controlling narrative. I mean, for instance, right there at the end, I was talking about those harmonics, right? Just before that moment, we actually had sort of a fake out. We had volume rising, we had layers increasing, we were bringing it up to a peak, and we dipped it down for 2 beats, brought it back up for the next 2 beats of the bar, and then ran that out. I guess maybe it was a beat and a half and a beat and a half, because I think we were still in 3 at the time. Anyways, it was half of a bar. And it was this little fake out of rising, dip down, and then bring it back up, and then run that to the end. And it's something about that that just absolutely clicked for me, almost as if, I mean, let's just perceive this rising action as an accomplishment of sorts. Whether it's something like getting up and doing something that you don't want to do, a chore around the house, or getting to the peak of an adventure, like regardless of the scope of this is an accomplishment. But what this feels like here, the little dip down and then the rise back up, is tripping and catching yourself. It's like making it to the top of a staircase, and that the final step is what kind of catches your toe, and you stumble a little bit. You don't fall down, you catch yourself, but right there at the end of this task, running into the peak of it, you stumble a little. You catch yourself and keep going though. And it just feels so human to have that little moment there. Most music would just continue the rise until you hit your peak and then sit with it. And Kaki King doesn't. There's that little dip there. And that's what I mean about like little purposeful choices. Coming after that section, we're in a really big moment. The guitar has been played with emphasis throughout most of this, physicality. And here at the peak of the track, or at least what appears to be the peak here, is harmonics being played, which is a very light sound. It has a heavy attack to it. You do need to hit the string pretty hard in order to create the harmonic sound, but it's kind of a thin, higher pitched tone. It doesn't have a lot of body to it. We are getting a pitch increase. We're reaching a peak on pitch and intensity from the attacks, but we haven't quite filled the space out. Almost as if we got to this peak just a little bit too early. Or another way to say it is, along with that stumble that happens just prior to this, that there's still room to grow. Maybe this isn't about accomplishment. Maybe this is about personal growth. Trying to, I don't know, grow into oneself, not physically, but emotionally, your character. There's always room to improve, and that's kind of what I get here. The stumble is a little bit of a mistake that's fixed quickly, and the song continues, but then there's this feeling of there's still room to expand. We're here, this is a pretty big moment, especially compared to the rest of the track, and yet it's not as big as it could be. We still feel a little small within our skin. And then, of course, the guitar shifts to chords away from the harmonics and goes for this really big sound in general. And this is where the song really feels like it comes into its own. This is the peak we've been waiting for, not just in the journey of the rising and falling action before, but even in this, running at this 9 here, we've been waiting to really push into that 10. It's layers of anticipation almost. And I really love that. And it's not just here either. I mean, we're talking about all places throughout this track. Why do the drums have such a long set of more foundational, functional drum work and then bust out a crazy drum fill at this specific point in the track and then shift back to functional drumming? What was it about that one moment that the drummer felt they needed to add that? Violin, lots of nice melodic melodic foundation ideas, lots of arpeggiation going on in this track, and then out of nowhere tremolo bowing, and then out of nowhere counterpoint to the guitar. Why these moments? It's the ebb and flow of this track. It's the contrast. It's the growth of it that I think really stands out to me. It makes even small moments. In other tracks, a drum fill is just a drum fill, but in here, it's not. We don't get too many of them, so when they do appear, it must mean something, right? It's an irregularity. It doesn't fit the pattern of the track. I wonder what more I could get out of this song after a few more listens, after I got the general gist of it. Because I'll be honest, right now, there's the long lower energy moment, a couple of rising and falling parts that don't feel like they change too much compositionally, and then the build up, the final, minute and 15 or something like that. And that's it. I kind of have my mind of two sections on this song. And I know there aren't. There's a lot of linear melody in here, there's a lot of varying layering, but I kind of just hear it in these two modes. And that's sort of because that's what I picked up on from the first time listen. But I found that the more that I paid attention to it, the more depth there was. And it comes down to the nuance. And I really enjoy that about the composition on this track. Now, I really enjoyed the guitar work. It starts out a bit simple, as most everything in here does, kind of a deceptive quality at the beginning of the track of just chordal. Actually, I think it started out just ornamental. The violin took more of a melodic line than the guitars did at the start. But as we go on, the guitar begins to really pick up on melody writing. And there's a strong amount of emotionality to it, too. It's what builds a lot of this track. If you listen to just the chordal work, just the harmonic work, I think you're mostly going to get a generally neutral emotion out of that. It deviates into joy at times, deviates into something a bit more pensive, sometimes even, I don't know, a longing, maybe a melancholy, not a melancholy, a nostalgia or something like that. But it generally hovers around a neutrality and sort of jumps to either end of the emotional spectrum a little bit. But the guitar is just oozing feeling after we get into it. I guess about 40 or 60 seconds into this track, the guitar really starts to pick up on this emotional melodic writing. And I just closed my eyes for a moment and just felt the guitar work. It was speaking to me. I really love melody writing like this. It's not quite as spectacle. It's not quite as impressive from that perspective. It is a bit on the slower side, and if you were to learn this guitar part, it might not take as long as, say some, metal shredding solo or something like that. But what it does do very well is tell a story, and those are the solos that are always going to stick with me. And this one is complex. It kind of flows with the harmony. When the harmony gets a bit more positive, it kind of leans towards that way too, and vice versa, but not always. And it creates these complex moments where the song dips into something more joyful and the music dips towards something, or the melody dips towards something a bit more sad, melancholic. And I think that's where the nostalgia part actually comes from. It's a bit of that bittersweet looking into the past and remembering things. It's the realization of how old you're getting. It's also the joys that come with that. The way that the guitar chooses to hang on to a note, one that feels like it's just about to ebb into a more negative sound, as if it's about to burst into tears itself and then catches itself, swings the pendulum back. It's the push and pull. Faster ideas, slower ideas, louder ideas, softer ideas, and all of the contrast, the dynamic work in the solo itself. It's very easy for me to connect to it and to hear its story. And I think that's so much of why I caught on to some of the ways that the guitar tells me the peak, the story of the ending. Why I spent so much time at the beginning of this analysis focusing just on that. The guitar work does so much heavy lifting in my enjoyment of this track. Now, it is supported by a plethora of interesting sounds too. We have the violin over here, which does a great job of setting the scene through a lot of these sections. And shifting some of the tension and energy as well. Like I said, kind of move into some tremolo bowing for a little bit, and that massively increases the intensity of that moment. But we also have the drum work in here too. It also has an ebb and flow. We'll go through something a bit more functional, just kind of keeping the core beat in the background, and then a nice fill, and then we'll bring back the beat, but with eighth note hi-hats or something like that, something to expand upon what it was already laying down. There was also one incredibly disgusting display of polyrhythmic ideas from the drummer, and that was phenomenal. I kind of wish we had more of that, but I think it did its job. It kind of marked what felt to me as the major transition. I don't know if this was the halfway point of the song or if it just felt like it was generally in that area. But this is, to me, the marker where we transitioned from the lightness and delicate elements of the opening into the rising energy that would take us to the end. Without that, I don't know, the song would have felt a bit different. It wouldn't have felt as stark. I mean, if we continue with this idea of growing into oneself and maturing, this could be the moment when, the first moment of adulthood happens, or not even just adulthood, maybe the moment when you realize you need to take on more responsibility. Sometimes that is the transition from childhood into adulthood. Sometimes there's adults who still don't understand responsibility. I'm not pointing any fingers. But those people are out there. And this is a big moment of growth. This is the metaphor of the archway, moving from one point of your life to another. And this song, at least to me, tells a movement into growth, not into degradation, of an expansion of the self, not regression. It's whatever this instrument is over here, also applying general timbre and ideas to the atmosphere for the guitar to reside within, but it's also the production. I think that is one of the key things here. It's not just the instrumentation that sits around and supports the guitar, but it also feels warm. It feels inviting. It feels like being out in grassy fields on a sunny day in spring. It does feel a bit claustrophobic too. There's a heavy compression to all of this. It might just be YouTube though. How old is it? Yeah, okay, so this is from 2008. On top of the fact that YouTube compresses stuff even today, the compression technology just wasn't as good back then either. So, oh, the video file's in 360p too. So that doesn't say much about the audio, but if the video is in 360p, the audio quality probably wasn't top notch either. So it might not have even been a strong source that YouTube ended up compressing to. I'd wager that the studio version of this also feels a bit compressed, but probably not quite as much as this. But it does create this warm, fuzzy feeling all throughout. It's very inviting, but it also feels nostalgic, tinted in sepia, maybe. I think that feeling of warmth and invitation and of an older time all come together to pair well with this mixed feeling, this joy, this happiness, this growth, this appreciation for experience, and pairing that with the more negative elements, a longing for maybe a nostalgia, a little bit of sadness. And it just exaggerates all of that. The guitar solo with the atmosphere of the instrumentation and the production, it's just gorgeous. It really is. And I'm going to have to check out more from this artist because I really enjoyed this. There's no lyrics to this one. Yeah, there's no lyrics here. So that's going to wrap this up. Kaki Kings, can anyone who has heard this music really be a bad person? Which I completely forgot that was the title, and I have no way to connect my experience with this track with the title. You know, let me know. If you heard this story, the musical story in a different light, something that fits with the title, I'm all ears. I absolutely love hearing other people's experience and perspective with music. On that note, these are my thoughts. What are yours? Did you enjoy this? Is there anything you'd like to add on to what I said? Anything that I might need corrected on? What's your take, perspective, or opinion on this? Put all of that and anything else you'd like to add into the comment section below. Above that, in the description box is a link for Linktree. Takes you here. You can find links to my music, ways to support the channel, a link to the Discord server, and so much more. Above that, if you could, like, subscribe, and ring the bell. I greatly appreciate all three of those. That wraps it up for today, but I'll be back tomorrow, 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 10 p.m. UTC, as usual. Until next time, remember to be critical, not cynical, of the music you listen to, and have a fantastic morning, afternoon, or evening, whenever you choose to watch my videos.